You might be intelligent, kind, financially stable. You might have done everything right. You might have said the right words, acted respectfully, shown yourself available and interested. And yet, she disappeared. She ignored you. She blocked you. Or worse, she continued to use you as a good listener while falling in love with someone else. Someone who, in your eyes, seemed less mature, less caring, less trustworthy. The brutal truth is that, behind the rejection you didn't understand, there's something far more dangerous. She never chose to reject you. Her brain decided for her. Before she knew it, before she thought about it, before she spoke. Most men live in the realm of reason. They think that winning someone over depends on arguments, logic, or proof of worth. They try to explain why they are a good choice, as if attraction were an equation. As if there were a spreadsheet where she compared the data and chose the best emotional investment. But the real game isn't rational. Seduction happens in the dark, in silence, in the invisible layers that shape what she feels before she understands what she's feeling. It's as if there's a second brain behind her eyes, a primitive, biological radar that detects specific traits and issues only one command: come closer, or move away. And when that radar says no, no logic can change her mind, because the decision has already been made before the idea even arises. That's the part that hurts, because many good, competent, and even physically attractive men are excluded from the game without even knowing they were playing wrong. They are eliminated by codes they don't understand, by patterns they haven't been taught. And that's where what few dare to reveal comes in. The invisible feminine instincts, the triggers that define everything in the first seconds, or even milliseconds, of an interaction. Triggers she herself is unaware of. Because they are automatic. Because they are not managed by discourse, but by the limbic system, by the field of deep emotions, by the genetic inheritance of thousands of years. Nietzsche wrote that what is done out of love is always beyond good and evil. But if you observe carefully, you'll realize that this also reveals the danger. Because if emotional choice surpasses morality, reason, and conscience, then we're not talking about free will. We're talking about instinct. About forces that corrupt or guide before ethics even enter the room. Desire doesn't consult the superego. It's born from the id. And whoever doesn't understand this becomes a statistic. Becomes the one who was too nice, there was no chemistry, became just a friend. The truth? They never had a chance, because they didn't awaken the invisible codes that open the door to the female unconscious. Over the next few minutes, you'll discover that attraction doesn't begin with a smile, a conversation, or appearance. It begins with the silent impact your energy creates before any words are spoken. You'll understand why the same man can be desired by one woman and ignored by another, and why she can love someone who makes her suffer and reject someone who treated her perfectly. You'll understand how animal instinct, ancestral DNA, and hormonal cycles create a dance of forces that shape female desire, and how you can learn to influence this dance instead of being crushed by it. Imagine entering a room full of people. You're relaxed, well-dressed, perhaps even confident. But in less than 3 seconds, without saying a single word, they've already internally labeled you interesting or irrelevant. There was no conversation, no smile, no direct eye contact. And yet, a decision has already been made, outside of logic, outside of consciousness. This is the animalistic gaze, an ancestral judgment rooted in a survival instinct that precedes any social construct. You weren't evaluated as an individual, you were scanned as a species. Psychologist Alexander Todorov, in a Princeton study, demonstrated that human beings form judgments about competence, confidence, and dominance in less than 0.1 seconds after seeing someone's face. This isn't enough time to think, rationalize, or weigh arguments. It's a pure reflection of the limbic system, the emotional and primitive center of the brain. The same system that, for thousands of years, helped our ancestors identify threats, leaders, and partners with survival capabilities. This instinctive reading, what we call the first emotional impression, is the invisible foundation of all future interaction. For women, this scanning is even more refined. Not by choice, but by biology. Evolution shaped the female instinct to identify, as quickly as possible, men with traits of dominance, protection, and genetic fertility. After all, while a man could father children with dozens of women throughout his life, A woman could only father a few, and therefore, every choice counted. Choosing wrong could cost her survival, her safety, or that of her child. This made the female brain an instant emotional reading machine, calibrated to detect body language, signs of self-confidence, social posture, and power energy, before the man even opens his mouth. And here lies the problem. Most men completely ignore this. They believe they will convince a woman after talking, showing that they are good, polite, and interesting. But when the animalistic gaze has already delivered its verdict, whether it's this man is a leader or this man is neutral, everything else you say will be mere noise. Verbal communication is peripheral. Unconscious communication reigns supreme. And that's where most people lose. Body language is the first silent cry your body emits. A closed posture, slumped shoulders, averted eyes, these are signs of unconscious submission. And the female gaze detects this as weakness. No matter what you say afterward, if your body tells you that you don't even control yourself, she will feel that you are not fit to protect, lead, or arouse excitement. The opposite is also true. A man who enters with physical presence, not arrogance, but posture, activates a response in the female brain, similar to that which animals elicit in hierarchical situations. She feels that he is seen, followed, considered. This triggers neurotransmitters like dopamine and norepinephrine, the same ones linked to pleasure and arousal. But be aware, this has nothing to do with beauty. It's not about height, nor about direct financial status. It has to do with body energy and social presence. Short, simple, and discreet men, when they have command of their own space and the rhythm of the environment, provoke very strong unconscious reactions. Because the female perception doesn't just seek physical strength, it seeks command. And command begins with how you occupy a space. This is why some men who don't fit the aesthetic standard are so magnetic. They don't ask permission. They don't negotiate presence. They transmit security with their gaze, with the rhythm of their words, with the way they touch objects around them, all in silence. And this perception, for the female unconscious, transforms into a mixture of mystery, value, and desire. She may not understand why he is different, but she feels it. The philosopher Ortega y Gasset said that love is surrender to fascination, and fascination begins before speech, before a smile, before a life story. It begins in the silent vibration that your body emanates when you enter a room. That's where the yes or no is born. That's where you're allowed to speak, or not. The irony is that many men try to correct the negative look they received through verbal effort. They become overly funny, overly solicitous, or try to compensate with gifts and promises. This only reinforces the initial interpretation. Submission. Men who try to compensate for their own worth transmit unconscious weakness. And the female radar detects this instantly. This isn't malice, it's biology. It's not about being an alpha in the cliché sense. It's about being emotionally dominant, having clarity about who you are, having control over your emotions, being responsible for your energy in the environment. This alters your breathing, your gaze, your reaction time, and consequently alters how her brain interprets it. And all of this happens in absolute silence. That's why some men manage to attract with a glance, while others are ignored even after weeks of effort. The difference isn't in what was said, it's in what was felt in those first few seconds. And the scariest part? This is almost never reversed. Because the limbic system is relentless. When it marks someone as unattractive, it takes a very strong emotional event to change the reading. Therefore, entering the environment with the wrong energy is like losing before even playing. And if you think this is unfair, it's because you're still thinking with your rational brain. But the game of attraction isn't fair. It's primitive, brutal, and silent. It's based on stimuli that have been sculpted over thousands of years, not on current discourse. She doesn't choose to ignore you, but she also can't choose you if her body didn't feel the right message. It's simple. If her body didn't respond, her mind will invent excuses to justify the emptiness. It will say, it was the timing, it wasn't the right moment, you're great, but none of that is real. The truth? You didn't activate what you needed. The first step is to master your body before trying to master a conversation. Train your breathing, posture, gaze. Walk as if you have direction. Speak as if you are certain. Look as if you observe the world, not as if you beg for validation. This is the silent power that most never develop, because they are too busy trying to be nice instead of being magnetic. And that's where everything starts to change. Because when you understand that attraction is born before logic, you stop trying to convince, and you start building the energy that speaks before words. Because deep down, the decision she made was biological. And the body never lies. The decision was made before the words were spoken, and now you understand how. The animalistic gaze labeled her in milliseconds. But what exactly did it identify? What is so powerful about this first nonverbal contact that activates or deactivates desire in the female unconscious? The answer lies buried in the mud of prehistory, in caves, in ancestral campfires, and in the dangers of a lawless world. Because despite modernity, apps, dating podcasts, and emotional freedom, the code that defines attraction is still prehistoric. You can take Ubers, go to therapy, and have an MBA, but her desire continues to respond to the same signals that determined survival 100,000 years ago. And no matter how much you try to rationalize it, the truth remains stark. The woman of today still carries the same biological filters as the woman of the African savanna. And these filters are activated by invisible triggers, traits and behaviors that signal strength, command, security, and fertility. Not because she chose them, but because her DNA chose them for her. Evolutionary psychologist David Buss, in one of the most ambitious studies ever conducted on attraction, analyzed the criteria for partner selection in 37 different cultures. The result? Women, regardless of culture, origin, religion, or social class, prioritized 3 universal elements: perceived status, protective capacity, and signs of genetic value. And this isn't expressed in words, it's expressed in energy. Perceived status isn't money, it's context. A man who enters a room with the posture of someone who is respected, followed, and listened to is perceived as valuable even if no one knows his name. It's instinct that says, he's someone others follow. This immediately activates the female radar. It doesn't matter if you're a bank manager or a rideshare driver. If your posture conveys hierarchy, her subconscious responds. This is pure evolutionary economy. Why would the female brain expend emotional energy on someone who doesn't alter the environment around them? Protective capacity goes beyond physical strength. It reveals itself in emotional control. A man who remains calm under pressure, who doesn't react impulsively, who speaks less and observes more, transmits a kind of quiet power that the female brain associates with stability and leadership. It's not about shouting, imposing, or showing off. It's about being the pillar in a chaotic environment. In ancient times, this was the man who survived attacks, who mediated conflicts, who hunted strategically. In modern times, it's the same man she feels she can trust when everything falls apart. This instinct hasn't changed. It just gained a suit and Wi-Fi. Meanwhile, signs of genetic value are more linked to what we call visible masculinity. This includes body posture, facial symmetry, a firm voice, a penetrating gaze, but also something few understand: indifference to the outcome. A man who doesn't seem anxious for acceptance, who doesn't try to prove anything, who doesn't adapt too much, activates the instinct for challenge, because he conveys that he has options. And a man who has options is automatically perceived as genetically valuable. This is the silent mechanism that explains why men who treat women with a certain unpredictability are perceived as more desirable, even if social discourse condemns this behavior. And here lies the shock. What she says she desires and what her body responds to are not always aligned. She may declare that she wants a sensitive, open, vulnerable man. But her biological radar doesn't respond to words, it responds to stimuli. And these stimuli are often found in tension, mystery, and controlled unpredictability. Freud called this the perverse polymorphism of desire, the human tendency to be attracted to that which challenges norms and generates internal tension. The philosopher Pascal already said, "The heart has reasons that reason does not know." Desire doesn't ask permission to be politically correct. It simply emerges. And when it emerges, it justifies its actions with subsequent moral rationalizations. Biology doesn't consult discourse. That's why so many women fall in love with emotionally unavailable men. That's why they reject those who treat them with care and welcome those who provoke them. Because beneath the surface, DNA is scanning for signals of dominance, security, and potency, not pretty intentions. And if you ignore that, you'll be dismissed as too nice, too good, there wasn't enough chemistry. The phrase she'll never say to you is, "You didn't activate my instincts." This phenomenon is universal. In feudal Japan, the most respected samurai was not the most aggressive, but the one who remained calm during chaos. In modern Brazil, the man who speaks little but has presence is still perceived as more sexually relevant than the one who tries to entertain the entire room. The pattern hasn't changed, only the packaging. The challenge for the average man today is to understand that he is trying to win an emotional game using rational arguments. While he explains, promises, tries to convince, the other is simply existing intensely. And it is this second person she desires. Not because he is better, but because he activates the invisible codes that say, "This man would survive in chaos. He protects me, he challenges me, he excites me." But how to apply this if you are not rich, famous, or imposing? The answer is context, intention, and energy. When you enter an environment with clarity of your worth, with inner conviction, with a mission greater than pleasing someone, you already change the energy field. This alters the way you walk, look, and express yourself. And the most powerful thing, you don't care what she thinks of you. And that's exactly what makes you interesting. Women are social empaths. They absorb the emotional energy of environments and people. When you transmit anxiety, a search for validation, a need to please, they absorb that as weakness, even if they can't explain it. But when you transmit control, purpose, quiet power, they feel a mixture of challenge and security. And that's the perfect biological trigger. Because it says, he doesn't need me, but he chose me. And that feeling is addictive. That's why so many women become obsessed with men who make no effort at all. Because effort conveys neediness. And neediness communicates scarcity. The man who knows his own worth doesn't run. He observes. He leads the environment with silence and direction. He offers but doesn't beg. He allows closeness but doesn't chase. And when that happens, something primal awakens. Her ancestral DNA whispers that this man is rare. We're not talking about manipulation here. We're talking about awareness. Knowing that her body responds to triggers she doesn't control. And using that strategically and ethically. Because, believe me, she wants to be activated. She wants to feel. She wants to surrender to a man who understands the invisible game. But for that, you need to unlearn what the modern world has taught you. You don't need to be perfect. You need to be instinctive. You need to be the kind of man who, even in silence, makes others react to your presence. You need to embody the archetype of the protector, the emotionally dominant one, the man with options. You need to exude commanding energy, even if you never say a word about it. Up to this point, we've talked about ancestral triggers, silent instincts, and codes that operate below consciousness. But there's an even deeper, more unpredictable, and more underestimated layer: cyclical biology. A silent factor that transforms everything without her realizing it. Hormones. The woman who found you irresistible a week ago might find you emotionally over the top today. The one who said she felt something special now avoids your presence for no clear reason. This isn't a moral contradiction. It's physiology. It's her body changing her perception of reality. And this happens without her knowing. Within the female body, every month, a silent hormonal revolution occurs. We're not talking about PMS or visible mood swings. We're talking about changes in sexual, emotional, and social preferences throughout the menstrual cycle. Studies conducted by Stephen Gangestad and Marty Haselton of UCLA revealed that women change their criteria for attraction depending on the phase of their cycle. As women approach ovulation, that is, their peak fertility, their choices become bolder, more physical, more instinctive. They are more attracted to traits of raw masculinity, defined jaws, deep voices, dominant behavior, and alpha traits. Their sexual energy expands, selectivity decreases, the desire for risk grows. That's why, during the fertile phase, a man who would be seen as too aggressive becomes irresistible. His energy matches her body's internal pulse. The cycle doesn't ask for permission, it demands stimulation. And the female radar responds. Even in stable relationships, women report sudden drops in desire for more secure partners during this period, and an almost uncontrollable fascination with masculine figures with more animalistic, dominant, mysterious energy. It's not betrayal, it's biology. After ovulation, however, the game changes. With fertility declining, the female body begins to seek stability. The need for emotional security, predictability, and affectionate touch increases. The type of man she desires changes. The rebellious alpha who once excited her now seems irresponsible, volatile, and immature. And that emotionally available friend, previously seen as boring, begins to sound comforting. The same man can be perceived as exciting or boring, depending on her hormonal cycle. This seems irrational, but it's scientifically traceable. Her brain literally lights up different regions of arousal and judgment, depending on the stage of the month. The most brutal part? She isn't fully aware of these changes, she only feels them. And what she feels, she interprets as truth. She believes you've changed, or that you don't feel the same way anymore. But what has changed is the internal neurochemical field. And if you, as a man, don't understand this, you can destroy relationships, hinder promising connections, or lose a woman who, in fact, still desires you. Just not at this exact moment. The question is, how to use this to your advantage? The first answer is not to react emotionally to her changes. Because if even she doesn't have complete control over this fluctuation, the worst mistake you can make is trying to confront, explain, or justify it. If you question, get emotional, pressure, or get frustrated, you transmit insecurity, and that devalues you even more. The secret is to perceive the cycle, not to manipulate, but to understand what needs to be activated in each phase. During the most fertile period, be the challenge, the mystery, the controlled danger. During the hormonal drop, be present, firm, and offer silent support. This dance, if well executed, makes you irresistible in all cycles. But few men have this understanding, because they were raised to see women as stable, constant, and rational beings. When in reality, she is movement, she is cyclical transformation, she is multifaceted, and that's its charm and its chaos. Understanding this is like learning to surf in a sea that changes waves every week. If you try to control it, you sink. If you learn to flow, you master it. Her body wants different responses at different times. And the man who recognizes this doesn't adapt to please. He acts as a silent conductor, changing the rhythm of the music without saying a word. And this, paradoxically, makes her feel that he understands her like no one else, because she feels embraced, challenged, and present at different times from the same man. Science has already shown that even male body odor is perceived differently according to a woman's hormonal cycle. The same perfume can be exciting today and cause repulsion tomorrow. This means that the perception of what is attractive, trustworthy, and desirable is relative to her internal biological moment. It's not you, it's the cycle. And when you stop taking it personally, you start playing on another level. Here's an image to help you remember. Imagine that inside her there's a hormonal mirror that reflects you in different ways. This mirror doesn't lie, but it changes, and its reflection will depend on your ability to maintain your own consistency while her reflection changes. That's emotional leadership. That's inner power. That's what differentiates men who collapse in the face of fluctuation and those who become anchors in the midst of the tide. But don't be fooled. This power comes with responsibility. Because by understanding the cycles, you become someone she feels sees inside. And this generates a connection of emotional dependence. And if used irresponsibly, this reading can hurt. That's why the true master of seduction never manipulates the cycle. He harmonizes with it. He offers intensity when she desires a challenge, and he offers stability when she needs shelter. He doesn't change his essence, but varies his energy, and that makes him unforgettable. The silent cycle is not your enemy. It's your map. It's the hidden dance that, when understood, transforms you into someone who seems to read her soul. But what you are reading are the hormonal fluctuations that she herself doesn't understand. And this, paradoxically, is what creates the feeling of a mystical connection. Because you anticipate what she needs without her saying it. And when a man achieves this, he enters an emotional territory where few have been allowed. In the end, the game of seduction is not fixed. It's dynamic, changeable, hormonal. And the man who understands these cycles is not the one who pleases every day, but the one who maintains the same center while her inner world spins. This man doesn't react. He influences. He dances with feminine nature, without fear, without anger, without anxiety. You can continue playing on the field of reason, You can keep trying to be the nicest, the most understanding, the most well-intentioned. But if you ignore the invisible feminine instincts, you are the pawn that will be sacrificed on the social chessboard. Because the truth is brutal. Whoever masters desire is the one who understands the hidden code and speaks the language before the spoken word. What makes this more dangerous is that the world will continue to tell you to be yourself, to wait for the right person, to believe that it's enough to be good. But nobody told you that her brain doesn't react to good. It reacts to the instinctive, the energetic, the magnetic. And when you don't understand that, you live a whole life trying to decipher rejections that even she herself can't explain. Therefore, if you want to stop playing in the dark, if you want to enter the invisible game with real tools and not with ready-made phrases or fragile advice, the next step is simple and strategic. The Forbidden Manual, How to Trigger Desire in 60 Seconds, isn't just an audiobook. It's a kind of silent weapon, a deciphered code. It doesn't teach you how to pretend, manipulate, or invent a character. It shows you how to activate the unconscious triggers she already carries. Triggers that, when touched, make her desire explode before any logic can stop it. Do you want to be remembered by a woman? Do you want your name to be etched on her body, not just in her memory? Then stop seeking approval and start understanding instincts. The Forbidden Manual is the map. The game is already underway. The only real choice you have is either you learn the hidden rules or you will be crushed by them. Now it's up to you.